Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano and welcome to a special edition of the Harpin Preview Show. Joining me to look ahead to Friday's World Under-20s final is someone earning his 39th cap. Welcome back to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Good to be back. It's been a while.
It has indeed. Yeah, we haven't had John since it was the Toulouse semi-final wrap. Would you believe? That seems like an age ago at this stage. Before we get to the actual under-20s, it's actually been 54 days and we still have no decision. And no, I'm not talking about the Ashes. It's actually the length of time between the Champions Cup final and the EPCR hearing into allegations about Johnny Sexton. And although they claim to be finished by Thursday evening when we're recording, they still say they're going to consider details and communicate a final decision in the coming days. What do you make of it all?
There's a stink of something rotten in that. 54 days is a horrific amount of time from an alleged offence or an actual offence, or whatever you want to look at this, but from something being wrong to something being dealt with. You deal with it as quickly as possible and you make it fair on a player. I mean, are they going to turn around afterwards and say, well, we're going to put in this long ban, but we're going to factor in the fact that we faffed around for 7.5 weeks and did bugger all before we actually make a decision. And we're going to factor those 7.5 weeks in and say that actually it goes from this length of time to that. And that's not going to happen. And what's going to happen is that they're going to say, as of today, until X time. And I don't want to get into any kind of disagreement with anyone or argument over whether or not the great Johnny Sexton should receive a ban or not. If what he's alleged to have said is true, if he has been in any way disrespectful towards officials, that's not right. And that kind of behavior, yes, there should absolutely be a punishment. But I think the issue that I have with it is just, get on with it. Get on with it. Make a decision. You had facts and information, presumably the day after the final. And maybe you had to go and get a little bit more information, but it doesn't take 7 weeks. It takes 7 days. This is just full on dragging it out for the sake of dragging it out and putting a bit of misery some people's way. Get on with it. Say what you have to say. If you've got all the facts, if you've got all the details, make your judgment. What do you need to hang around for? How that?
Well, I mean, there's no excuse. I mean, imagine if this had happened. Imagine if, I mean, I wouldn't say it would happen for a regular URC game, but let's just, for argument's sake, say Leinster narrowly lost a URC game at the end of April, and Sexton did the same thing. He called the ref whatever he called him, or any player does that. There's they actually have matches the following week, so if there's going to be an adjudication, it has to be done in that time. You know what I mean? So they have to be set up to do it like that.
Look at Dylan Hartley.
Yeah.
Dylan Hartley knew within a week of the incident with Wayne Barnes that his Lions tour was over. He knew within a week that he had a ban that was carrying him through to the end of the Lions tour and beyond, for what he said.
Yeah.
And
the longer it takes the EPCR, it whatever the actual reason, it screams of just basic indecision. Like they have, because it was the final, it was the last Leinster game of the season. There was nothing they could ban. There was no games to ban him for after that. But the longer they take, it looks like they're using that time because it's a decision they don't want to make. It's just not a good look at all.
No, look, it just looks really bad. It looks really unprofessional, and it looks like they don't know what they're doing.
Listen, and just before we move on from this, there's just an extra thing I think people need to realize. There's an extra element to this, is that Leinster are in the dock as well as an organization. There's a second charge for not controlling your players. So just people are talking about Sexton and his ability to play in the World Cup, and that's of course very important. But there's an extra element to this, and if there's any. It might just be a monetary fine for the club, but there's also the possibility maybe of points because it happened in the Champions Cup. There could be points docked, or I don't know what they're going to do, but it's that there is that element as well. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and this is the problem. It's more waiting to see what they come up with, and look, hopefully we'll know tomorrow. By the time this actually goes out, maybe we'll know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, see, the thing is. this is purely speculation on my part, but one thing they might have been pushing for is like, because it seems like that the hearing was concluded today, today being Thursday, and possibly they could have said, well, listen, if you release this verdict now, it's going to be all over the news cycle tomorrow. And we've got lads, which we're going to be talking about in a second. We've got lads playing a big game tomorrow. And we'd rather have them be focusing on that. So maybe if you could just hold off on releasing it. And a lot of times they release news at Friday evenings anyway, just so everyone in their offices have cleared out for the weekend anyway, so nobody can be contacted for comments. So it kind of suits everyone to maybe to just to slip the news out late when Ireland have played. So you never know.
I'd love to think that that's what it is. I'd love to think that somebody has had the foresight to say, let's keep the focus on the 30 or 46 young fellas who are going to be playing tomorrow evening, and give them the credit and the opportunity that they deserve in this big world stage. And I'd love to think that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Let's give them that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, we'll do that. And listen, why don't we start harping ourselves on those lads? They've had an amazing tournament. Well, they've had a roller coaster of a tournament in many ways, but on the pitch they have done really well, and they're in the final. It's on Friday evening. It kicks off at 6:00 at the Athlone Stadium in South Africa. It's on television. It's going to be on Virgin Media 2, starting at 5:30 p.m. And so let's, what have you made of the tournament so far?
I think it's been a great tournament. I think there's been so much good to watch. When you're watching a tournament and you've got this thing of, geez, lads, Georgia could be in the semi-finals of this competition. And
Georgia, who got promoted.
Yeah. I mean, that's just incredible to see that kind of thing, in my opinion.
Absolutely. But I think you can safely say that the way this tournament has panned out, that we definitely do have the best two teams in the final. And it's Ireland and France. And France have definitely impressed up to now. Like they looked like they've fallen behind. They went, 17 points down in the semi-final to England.
Down against England.
And they just came back and rolled them over and hit them for a 50 burger, and it was a very powerful team. But listen, you look at their lineup and they've got this absolute monster of a guy, Tuolagi, in the second row, and they've got some great talent all the way through the squad, but you can say the same. So why don't we look through this Irish team, and who've done incredibly well. And we lost a couple of players earlier in the competition due to red cards in the opening couple of matches. And when we had the ball handling hooker on the show before the tournament, he said the one player we didn't want to lose was Hugh Cooney, and he was right because he was good in the center. But the squad has been able to step up, and we've been able to fill that gap. We lost Rory Telfer to a red card in the second match against Australia, but still, this is a really strong team for this final.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, with the exception of maybe one or two players, it's as good as we're getting. And there's some real promise in there, like some really, really good, strong players who they understand what they're there to do. They've got they seem to have a really good set of skills, and it's backed up by a good game plan and good psychology. And we talked a bit about that already, for next season for other teams. But the resilience they appear to have, the determination they have, it looks like things could be going horribly, but we can get something out of this. And the England draw in the first round is a really good example of that. We were quite far down to then claw it back and take the draw. And but for a couple of missed opportunities off the tee, could have been a win. But you don't focus on those. You don't focus on, it was a couple of minutes or whatever. Everybody focuses on, here's what I can do better next time. And you can actually see that in them as a team. The players are coming out and they're doing things better than they did the previous game. They're more efficient with their clear outs, or they're kicking better out of hand, or whatever else it is. They're taking their opportunities. A lot of these players are putting themselves in the shop window and saying, yeah, this is the under-20s tournament and it's a big deal and it would be great to win this. And then go on and take a green jersey elsewhere. Here I am now, and you'll have heard my name now, so that in 2 years' time, when you're hearing it all the time, that's not a surprise. I think Gleeson is a great example of that. Like, there's a fella who is just going to, everybody talks about how somebody like Coombs is beating down the door of the Irish back row selection. Here's a player who's going to come up and be beating down his door and saying, "Hey, buddy, look over your shoulder. You better get good, better get better real quick, or I'm going to take that jersey from you." He's a brilliant example of it. I think our front row have been great. You worry going up against a South African front row, and then you watch them marching them back on their own line and panicking to get a ball away. Like, it's been great to watch. Great to watch young guys who are enthusiastic, and sometimes they're a little bit cocky with the decisions they make, but then you see the decision come to fruition and you're realizing maybe that's not cockiness, maybe that's just full on knowing this is what I can do, that's what he can do, this is the decision I'm going to make, and we're going to create something. And yeah, it's a joy to watch. Yeah, I mean, it's just been the way they played. I mean, we've had other people on after every match of the tournament. And in the last pod, we had Thala Masutu from Rugby Bits, a South African podcast, and he was marveling over, and he actually said it's amazing how they play so much. They play pretty much exactly the same way as the senior team. And that's one of the best compliments you can give, I suppose, because and we've said it before about schools rugby as well, how you look at the schools cup finals and the systems and the way they're playing and the technical abilities of the players, and you can see that they're coached to a similar level and they understand all the ins and outs of the game and stuff, and that translates to the under-20s level, and they just look so professional, especially on defense. I can't talk enough about how well they've defended in this competition. South Africa, they were so hungry. Maybe once, twice they were too hungry, but still, they want a turnover at every tackle, and just the way they work together to get the ball back, and also like going back to the Grand Slam, they didn't coast to victory in every match. They were behind. They were losing in a lot of them, but they still fought for the full 80 minutes and got the win in the end. And they've got that resilience and the ability to play together. Sam Prendergast is a classic example of that. You say that first game, we missed a kick, missed a few conversions, could have won that game. That was him doing that. He didn't have a great game, but he's worked his way through. He's played himself back in, and he's one of our best assets. And of course, having Fintan Gunn alongside him, I don't think there's been enough chat about him. He's done really well. Yeah. He's a quality scrum half, and the two of them work really well together. And just in case anyone accused me of just talking about the Leinster players, we were talking about losing players in the center, but John Devine and Hugh Gavin, they're a pair from Connacht, and they've done really well, and they work well together in that center, and that's part of that defensive structure is reliant on them. And then, of course, you've got the back row, which is Ulster. James McNabney comes back into the team for this final, and you've got Quinn and Gleeson, who pretty much everyone's talking about for their ability carrying and stuff, and just all throughout the team, and even down to the bench and all. There's quality throughout it. For whatever you can say about the French team, we've got players to match them. It's going to be a fascinating final. Yeah. The big thing for me is, and is there anything worse than seeing some French team coming to play against you with some enormous fella playing in the second row, and you get flashbacks to Will Skelton, and that's every time I see him, that's all I can think. It's let's create a team that can do all these things because he can do all those things, and free up players to do everything else. So I think that's where the defense is going to need to be really, really tight. France have run in at least 4 tries against every team they've played so far this tournament. And that's where that defense, we need to be miserly with that defense. They cannot be let get a sniff of anything, because they'll break from anywhere. They'll run from anywhere. They'll run at anything. And we have a big fella like him, he will literally run at anything with no fear, because he's so big. And I think it's where you need someone who's been watching the likes of Will Connors, who's just going to chop him down at the ankles every single time, give him no yards and give him no opportunities. That guy loves a turnover. He's got to be leading the turnover stats. Just after the England game, he definitely got 3 or 4 against the English. It's just got to be really careful about letting them have no opportunities. I think that's the biggest thing, to take our own when they come. I think that France's attack has been really, really powerful and really strong. And I say they're happy to run it from anywhere. But if we can keep our defense structured, I don't think when we get our opportunities, I don't think France's defense has been as good as ours. I think ours will be the stronger defense coming up against the stronger attack. So it'll be very, it's going to be one of those very, very tight games where genuinely it's hard to call. It's hard to say who is the more likely team to win this. I know what my heart says, but my head doesn't want to make a decision.
Yeah, that's oh no, it's definitely very close to call based on the form, and the matches between the two have been very close over the past couple of years, even with Ireland the Grand Slams, who took it took late scores, I think in both cases for us to come out on top. But I suppose the fact is we did come out on top, and they'll have the confidence to do it. I mean, I think from Irish fans' point of view, looking at Friday, looking ahead to this match, I think the first thing is like, if you're going to go on social media, don't talk about Sexton. Don't talk about whether you like a jersey or this jersey or that jersey. Park all that and just get behind the lads. Wish them well. Maybe show highlights from the tournament so far. Share, get on social media, because they're probably not supposed to be looking at it, but they'd be looking at it. Give them all the support you can. And then when it comes to the actual game, just remember that, this is a really good France team, and they could run in a couple of tries, maybe early tries, whatever. They could get a break in the early stages, but this Ireland team is never out of us. And they've got confidence to come back and play the full 80 minutes. And there's talent right the way through the squad. And
I think it's worth saying, just on what you're saying, that confidence, that resilience, that ability to come back. Look at everything that's happened this tournament, and the horrific circumstances that have followed them around following that very unfortunate and untimely death, and to lose one of your players because of that, that he needs to go home, and then to step up and say, you know what, this has been a shit week. Let's do this for the right reasons. Let's go out and win these games, because that's what these people would have asked of us, and it's what they would have expected of us, and what they would have pushed us towards. And let's show that strength to get to that point is huge. So I don't think it really matters how the game starts, because they will have that strength of emotion, that strength of mental resolve, and that's what's going to carry them through that full 80 minutes.
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely a lot to look forward to, and it's the attritional nature of the competition as well. These just 5 matches in 20 days, 5-day turnarounds between every game. I mean, it's been, and on all the other stuff they've had to put up with, it's just, they can really do no wrong in our eyes at this stage, whatever happens. But we definitely know that they can at least go toe to toe with this French team, and it promises to be a classic. Well, listen, Conor, we're going to leave it there. Fingers crossed. Like I say, if anyone's listening, just get behind the boys on Friday and give them all the support you can. And listen, Conor, thanks for coming on. We're going to hope to have you on soon. We'll be talking more about the World Cup going down through the summer.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me again.
No problem at all. And coming up next on Harpin on Rugby, we'll have one of our wrap pods looking back on the final. So look out for that. And as ever, check out our social media channels and be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you can. All the links can be found in the program notes. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.